So, for this first game, we're going to have Callum and Chris commentating, so I'm going to take a back seat whilst I make sure everything's working properly. But what we're going to do is pass you over to Callum to go through Alex's list. So, coming your way now.
Alexander, not Alan. Well, realistically so far, we're just looking at a standard Niji, but it's like a bit of a spicy bit with the one-off arena choice climax in there. It's like I'm not entirely too sure what that bit is going to be for.
Every time I see your Niji,
realistically,
I wonder how we
it's
actually
going to be
got
kind of event-based build, but there's going to be with the Shiriko combo at level 1. So it's going to be trying to salvage pieces reliably, but not using like the free color packages that other decks have been seen about, but taking advantage of the level 0 aggro game with the Karen Sinker and the Shitaku on desktop 4, but it also gets power on play, so it's quite an aggressive level 0 play to be making. But in terms of overall, it's just like a fair bit. But the spicy part is going to be the Shitaku 2-1 here, because it's going to be doing an interchanging package, one to the other. So it's basically constantly being able to draw. So it's like, and draw your constant hand sticks to basically try to pilot into your Kanata combo. With Kanata being also a topper on play, so you can just ditch for the climax that you need. Overall, like, it's nothing else really standard apart from the main pieces that you tend to see. It's just the Shitaku changes that is going to basically make or break the game for this player. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it's going to pop off level 1 onwards.
Yep. Alex's deck is interesting, but we've also got Alan's deck, which is another rather standard Niji list. So what he's using here is the set 1 Karen top end, using the new Pants level 1 combo, which is the Emma. So he is definitely more focused on the event package, running 4 copies of the pillow, 3 copies of the starfish counter, which can cause some detriment to Niji, just purely for the fact that some of them do require full field music for certain effects. The other thing he does have that Alex does not have access to is actually just more backup through the best counter itself, which could be interesting, especially because the fact that Alex's level 1 combo generally only gets to just over 6,000 power, while the Emma, if played correctly, will be sitting on 6,000 on defense as well, so we might not see as many reverses, which can affect Alex's hand. The other ones to watch out for in Alan's deck here will be the fact that he will likely lose board at level 2 greatly, but he should be able to keep at least some sort of board pressure by clever usage of these events, both the Starfish counter, which allows him to bring something back, as well as the pillow event, which is similar to what we would call cigarettes. Look at middle top 2, and pick something that is equal to or lower than the total level of characters that you milled. Without further ado, I think the players are ready, so I'm sure you'll hear Liam in a second as he gets them started off.
So we're going to have Alan on our right here, we've got Alexander on the left. To identify which one's more, you can tell that Alan's list is basically having the Karen sleeve, so we're going to be using the Karen deck.
Yeah.
The time has already now started, so...
Okay, so do we start, Liam? Standing or resting?
Standing.
You can go second, I will go first.
They haven't even decided who's going first here, so we'll get to see a bit of their mulligan decision here. I think a lot of their early game will be decided about what they have access to early on.
And Alan ditching first, meaning he's going to be taking first in this game?
I would assume so, yeah. I didn't see which one they picked. So he's discarded both the Karen and the Karen's event, which he doesn't need at all really until the late game, and even then he only needs the Karen. And
we saw the Shiriko combo go for Alexander along with the 2-1 Shitaku. I couldn't quite tell what the third card was in.
I didn't catch that myself either, but we should hopefully see shortly. It's not ideal for Alan there, revealing an event instead of a music character, but he's not really that bothered about the powers, considering he's going first and not having to swing over anything at all.
Yeah, an early standard cancel right off the top there, just so it's just like we're not going to be seeing much of pressure so far from onto Alexander. So to see because Shizuku is only going to be like 1-5, so it's going to be quite small. But he's just going to return with his own, but that's basically where the Karen clean cut is. But now in the Shizuku, it's also going to be on 3-5 base, so it's going to be straight rolling over the other one.
Yeah, I don't think the clean cut does too much here for this matchup. Barely any of them are running really any back row. With things like the Candy Berry, they're not that worried about having that early on. They only really use that for the brainstorm effect and the top look at. That's quite interesting from Alex there. He's obviously got a fair few climaxes in his hand. Deciding to play the Karen level 0 that allows him to swap a card from Buck.
I mean, you do say about the clean cut not being valid, but because Emma's very low, weak power on defense, it means that the clean cut can realistically scale over.
The Emmas aren't weak on defense. They're 6k still with an event and waiting room.
I know next turn, yes. So
yeah.
6k, yeah. So, but even then, it's just like 6k is still reasonably, because the clean cut can basically hit to 5k, but you get any assists on top of that, it's just going to be quite scaling over, because obviously he's only going to be running the one counter, which is basically a pay for ditch an event to tap counter, but I don't think he's going to be willing to just discard that straight away.
He'll definitely not be using the tap early on in the game. It'll entirely just be there for that to keep that one lane a bit more secure and swing into an open lane in the following turn.
We've seen Alan basically dropping the Ricky, but it depends on what he's going to be searching for. Is he going to be generically trying to find his combo?
Well, he already found one copy off of the
He's going to be grabbing, I presume that's another combo. I'm not entirely too sure.
So yeah, that's another copy of level 1 combo. So this for any player that's not familiar with Nijisaki, what his level 1 combo does is on attack, he has an event in the waiting room, which we saw him discard right at the beginning of the game, so he's not going to struggle to get that. And he's also got a couple other events that's in there. On attack, gain 3,000 power until the opponent's turn. And then on attack, he can mill up to the top 4 cards from the top of his hand and add any character or event from there to his hand.
Yep.
And we can see him there putting down the pants back row supporter as well, which should give him that extra bit of power.
Yeah, it's just seeing that extra 500 power as well globally, meaning that his characters are going to be a little bit more. But seeing that Panther assist has really come into play already. Just recycling out just to basically get something back from Clock, which I assume it was just a Ricky that you just took back.
Yeah, it was just the standard Ricky. The nice thing with the Niji package, especially on things like the Rickies, are they always grab from discard, so you can set up that Clock to make sure that the Pants support will at least grab him something that he does want.
Yeah. I've seen Alexander lose the top 4, but he's also cancelling, so he's staying on level 0. So he can't get that extra mill progression in his deck for salvaging for his level 1 combo. So he's not really going to be having too much of a good time for now. He needs to figure out what he's going to do now to come back into this level 0 game. Because with Alan also being on 0-4, it's like he can reliably take damage to get himself to level 1 at this point. And see what goes from there, really.
Yeah, and this may actually be the turn where the clean cut does matter for Alexander. The ability to both clear out that the climax swapper that Alan played, which shows that Alan must have the climax already in his hand. Just off of that, you would assume. So Alan's not worried about losing that. So the clean cut to allow him to keep Alexander to keep a character on the field for the following turn, and keep that hand size, because he's going to slowly be dwindling it down with the fact that he's cancelling so much. A lot of thinking going on here from Alexander. He's obviously trying to work out how he can keep a board as well as keeping his hand for the following turns.
Well, is it just like he can't really just try and get gamble with trying to put the 0-5 because he does know that Alan did bring a Ricky back to his hand, meaning he can just take the 1 damage and put himself to level 1 next turn if he swings any damage and for it to stick. So with this state at the moment, it's like it's going to be very hard for Alexander to think about what he could reliably do.
Yeah.
So thinking about trying to just go into the middle, just probably could try and keep Alan at level 0 if he does cancel off top. Which that's probably what he's thinking in his mind now here.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate that Alexander's actually played his assist there. It's not global like Alan's, but it is still an assist with the effect of the penal, which would have given him that board pressure going into level 1. But I think pushing out the damage where he can is more important for him.
Yeah. And you said say that he probably could have just like tried to commit and then try to push Alan as hard as he can. Or would he not? Would you think that he doesn't have the hand to do so, and that he was just trying to think about whether or not he could just go try to keep Alan at level 0 and try to delay back for a little bit when he can get his level 1 combo set up?
So I think Alexander sort of had to push some damage, but I think he just didn't have the hand to do it. Looking at how long it took him to sort of think out his turn there. A combination of that with the fact that, as you say, you couldn't really just deal 1 damage and keep it happy. So going for the direct lane meant that Alan was at least having to play over for a triple combo like he did there. It is unfortunate in the fact that he didn't sort of diminish the hand at all for Alan. Yeah. But we'll see that, and I think that's Alan now got 2 climaxes in his stock.
Yeah,
so
basically he just buries the very first one deep. So unless he basically has a form of stock removal, which Alexander isn't running, so basically he can't just use the 1/1 just to hard and move it out.
Yeah.
But now Alan's basically gonna think he's gonna have to sacrifice that climax now, right at the very bottom. But he could think about getting the other one paid out in the next following turn, because depending on how the game state is going, because realistically right now, Alan's gonna be having a few climaxes out in stock and waiting room. But he's basically trying to press as much as he can.
Yeah. See Alan thinking there about the Starfish counter. The one issue he has with burying anything in his stock, and that's another climax.
A third climax going straight into his stock is not something that you realistically wanted to see.
Especially since both these climaxes is not actually even plussed off of the pants support in the back row.
Like, at the end for it, it's a case of it's just he would try to not be too greedy and try to basically think, right, if I press continue, I could potentially mill climaxes that I don't want. But if I basically stick with what I had and see where I could realistically go from there, like he realistically thought the gamble was in his favor, but unfortunately now it's a fight with 3 climaxes in the stock and very short deck. Alan could be in a very dangerous predicament here, depending on how hard Alexander can push him this turn.
Yeah. Alan did get some amount of damage through. We can see Alexander's now hitting level 2.
No, so he didn't. He wasn't hitting level 2. He was 1 card too short to hit level 2. He miscounted.
I'm glad I'm not the only player that couldn't count to 7 there. It looked like Alexander also struggled with that. But yeah, Alan did get some damage through at least. So if he does take a wee bit of damage on the swing back, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world for him. It does hurt him, the fact that he does have those 2 climaxes relatively deep into the stock. He doesn't really have any way of paying out stock other than with things like Ricky or he's Brainstormer until level 2 and level 3.
Like, the Brainstorm, sure, it's just like, but he's going to realistically see. Yeah, so he doesn't yeah, that's going to be very tough for him because it's like he's only running the 1 early play, Shizuku, meaning if he does not have that set up already, it could be really dangerous for Alan for the next progressing for the next few turns, because he generally wants to be building stock to basically pop off when he gets Karen, but he doesn't have that luxury, knowing that he could realistically try to dig through. But seeing that Alexander basically is willingly want to put himself to level 2 is a bit. I'm not entirely too sure what he'd be going for here because he wouldn't be able to early play in this position. But
I don't think he's that worried about the early play. The fact that he's using the level 2 changing effects in Shizuku and the Shiroko just allows him to give that extra pressure. And it's actually probably the safer play for him overall, because the fact that we know that Alan's not going to get big enough really to deal with that level 2 board. He has his 1/1 anti-change reverser, but that's not really doing much in this matchup other than the fact that it might clear out a bit of stock for Alan and generate him a stock the
1/1 anti-change reverser on early play basically can recover the Alan's stock condition, but at the moment in time, without really seeing the 2/1s coming down, because he's only got 2 stock for it right now, and he's got a very short deck. Realistically, I would have put basically knowing that I can't really commit the 2/1s to the board. It'd be keep myself on 1/6 just to refresh and have a better deck ratio to climax deck ratio.
Yeah.
But he's trying to go in realistically here and try to see if he can remove 2 Emmas. But he's basically lost most of his stock now, so he has to be a bit careful in the next couple of turns.
Yeah, the Emma should be relatively safe. If I remember right, Alan got at least one of the starfish counters, which will recover one of the Emmas even when it's reversed. So
he's basically he's essentially having 2 Emma combos surviving this turn through the starfish counter.
Yeah.
But also knowing Alexander's hand state right now, he's only got 2 cards. If I can see correctly, 2 cards. Knowing that canister combo is ditching 2 cards, so even if he was to basically clock draw 2 in this following turn, he basically only had to be 4, even with canister getting him 1 back, so he can basically 4 then net 1. So basically he'll still have 4, so he could realistically do double, but he would still need another turn to basically encourage the stock or hit a choice trigger here.
Yeah, we can see that Alexander must just be residing that back row Kanata to allowing for the restand for the attack from the Kanata itself.
That's probably why he basically runs 5 choice, basically just to try and see the stock gen to his 2/1 Shizuku play, to try to encourage a bit more, to be a bit greedy, or basically to be able to salvage or get stock. Either way works for him in his favor, but because the game has literally not been going his way in the early, he's essentially skipped his level 1 combo play already, which is not exactly a good sustainable space for him because he essentially loses his hand just committing the 2/1s into play.
Yeah, and an interesting thing here about Alexander's deck is that he only actually runs 17 soul triggers. So even with the choices, he's not got an amazing amount of targets that you would normally see from sort of more choice heavy or a standby deck that maybe runs that choice as well.
He essentially using the choices for the 2/1 and the 3/2 combo. That's essentially all he's doing. But without seeing those choices getting triggered, it's essentially, it doesn't really do anything else for him.
Yeah, I think a large part of that is probably just trying to get that stock generation with running a level 2 combo as well. But for those who don't know what the Kanata in the back row does that Alex has here with the marker underneath it, when he plays it, it has 3 effects. So the first one is that you can rest it if it's not got a marker underneath it and choose a character or a copy of the 1/0 event that you put underneath, which is the cigarettes event. Put that underneath it as a marker. Then he can either pay 1 rest it to return the marker to his hand, or at the beginning of the attack phase, if the event is underneath, he can pay 2, discard 2 to restand a character. Which is extremely useful with the Kanata because the fact that Kanata rests itself in the climax placement.
Yeah, he's not the only Kanata that does the rest, because he does have the secondary level 3, which is basically also burn 1, burn 3, which can sometimes be quite scary depending on the condition.
Yeah, it's one of the actual nice cards to play in that deck, especially because the fact that it's an option at the beginning of the attack phase and not the climax phase as well.
So looking at what Alexander's looking to do here now, he's just trying to commit for the damage output. Because Alan did have quite a few climaxes in his stock, so realistically, He's just thinking to see if can I be a bit greedy and try to press the damage because I'm far back behind on level 2 now, and even though I have 2 ones on board, it's like there's no guarantee those are going to be sustainable for the follow-up turn. But we can realistically see what's going to happen now in Alan next turn. He's going to need to figure out how to fix his deck state, because if I can see clearly, that's his last card in deck, meaning that he is going to go at most 5 back in. He did get a climax to his hand the previous turn, because on the first trigger he did trigger a gate climax, so basically he added level 1 gate climax back to his hand. And he couldn't get rid of it because obviously he had nothing in clock for the Panthersist to do anything for it. So realistically, going like 4 back in at best, which is not really good. So he has to basically put the effort this turn to blast through his deck completely, and then just to try and see if you can get a better climax to deck ratio here.
Yeah, I don't think he'll struggle too much with the deck speed, especially because that level 1 combo is just entirely deck speed for him. The addition of grabbing an event normally for him.
Like,
he's okay in that front.
He's got 2 combos, and he can easily search for another. It's like he's debating what to clock here to see this encourage his game state, because the combo is going to be 7k on attack here, but.
It's not going to be enough to get over these 2-1 Shizukas, just because they're getting that 1-5 for every other music character.
Yeah. So, seeing one of the Rickies basically paying out one of the climaxes, but it's like how he's going to basically encourage the brainstorm and then to probably a 1-1 just to try and get that second climax that's stuck in stock right now. But if he's debating whether or not he actually does want the brainstorm, which he does, so he's going to be conceding if he can get rewarded through the brainstorm in this follow-up play.
Yeah,
because the brainstorm.
Alan's just going to move the Ricky up into the center slot and brainstorm, and if he pluses off of it, he pluses off of it. But if not, he's just going to do the 3 swings with those, try and keep a bit of hand size going into his level 3.
Yeah, the best other thing about the brainstorm is because it's a top 2 rearrange, meaning he knows that this first attack is not going to be a gate trigger, unless he's unfortunate that 2 of his gate triggers are on top of his deck after he brainstorms and plays the climax.
Yeah, there's nothing worse. I've seen that many times playing the trigger. So he whiffs on the brainstorm here, but he does hit an event, which means that the Emmas are going to get their power on attack.
Well, it's not really too surprising seeing the brainstorm whip, because he didn't have many climaxes in this deck, and it's a really relatively big deck state. So even though if he combos, it's like he's only going to go through half that, so he needed a third combo realistically to just pile through that entire deck.
Yeah, and he grabbed the Shiroko from the Thanksgiving booster there. To pair that extra stock, so it's just pay 1, discard 1. You can look at up to top 3 and just choose one amongst them to add to hand. As well as it gaining 1k if all of these characters are music, but I don't think that's going to affect his board state at all with the extra 1,000.
No, he's just going to straight overplay it anyway with another combo. So he's just like trying to see how much can he get this deck fixed, which is basically essentially the priority in this turn, because he knew full well that if Alexander had another turn where he could just slam climax down with direct lanes, it's not going to go too well for Alan, because if he just takes that, he could easily just go straight to 3.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting here. It's as we discussed earlier, one of the perks of the open deck list format is the fact that Alan here doesn't need to worry about the turn of the Starfish counter against himself, as the Emmas do require a full board of music on attack to do the top 4.
Like, I was one of the counting the clock kicks that going into stock, but seeing that Alexander did get the cancel off there, which has been relatively well for him. So he's just going to be crashing the board in just to see about pressing damage while milling the deck state and get his hand back. That's 2 climaxes and 2 lots of force. So whether or not we're going to be seeing any more climaxes getting milled, or will he basically stop on the third one? If he knows how many climaxes are in that deck at this point, you never know, because he could still have a good 2, as far as I'm unaware.
Yeah, and it's not a large deck now.
No.
I'm sure he's quite happy to see it on that 4th one as well, because it just reduces the chance of him actually triggering on the attack as well.
He wouldn't want us to basically just flip another climax after he triggered 2 the last turn and 1 the turn before. So the question is, will he go straight through that deck, or will he try to take it one by one?
If he goes probably just take them one by one. I think he's got to be that more cautious. As you say, it's likely that there's still the 2 in there, but we don't really know if it's 2 or just the 1 left. But I would assume it's more than likely the 2, off of the way that he's been discarding and things like that.
Yeah, it does sound like more of a 2 than a 1. So if he goes blasting through the deck, that means that there's pretty much none left in there. He's going one by one.
Here.
That's another 1. Yeah.
It's not the worst though. What's that? 3 cards in deck, and as long as he doesn't trigger the pants there, which he didn't do.
Although that's not exactly great either, because basically he's got 2 Karens now in his stock. So if he wants them for his level 3, he's basically needing to pay the stock for them.
Yeah, but he has loads of ways of getting them back, between the pillow event and the brainstorm that he has sitting there on the back.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's just like you're looking at it in a way, it's like he doesn't exactly have the stock resources to basically go straight in for the Karen combo play. But unfortunate for him right now, he had put Alexander to 2-6, is it?
Yeah, 2-6. Yep.
Yeah, so
he's still on 1-6, so he's obviously hitting level 2 this turn with the refresh. But
so from what we are seeing right now, we've got 4 Emma climaxes and 2 Karen climaxes are out at the minute.
Yep.
So we know the bottom card of his stock is a Karen climax, so the other one is either in his deck or in his hand. I would expect it to be in his deck.
Yeah, and I think he's quite happy to have that in his deck. Even if it's the last card in his deck, that means he's got easy access to it as long as he just draws any other climax.
To be fair though, basically, even if it's in his hand, it's not a bad shout either, because Alexander now needs to consider it's like, what's he going to do this turn? Because he's on 2-6. Even if he cocks himself to 3-0, that's 2 levels essentially he's behind Alan here. Which is not a good spot for him favorably, because he needs to be able to push Alan to at least a good high level 2 count here.
You can see that Alexander is having to take a fair amount of thought in here, as he seems to just be getting further and further behind each turn he's getting here, damage wise. So it's not a good case for him. And the fact that Alan's cleared his board does deny the reverses on the 1 Shizuku's as well.
Yeah, those 2 1 Shizuku's are going to be there for a while until the Karen come in.
Yeah.
Like, realistically, Alan will be going to 2-0 this turn, regardless, because of this refresh penalty. So, well, not really a penalty, is it? We're just used to like these terms of technicalities when it's technically not a penalty. It's just a clock top card into front of your deck into the clock.
Yeah, the refresh actually just hinders Alexander even more. Just the fact that he can't change into the aggressive Shizuku's from the Shiriko.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, that's fine. So realistically thinking, because he got 1 Emma, would Alexander be willing to try and bet swinging a 1 into the Emma? Ooh, that choice. That's actually not a bad shout here for him. He's at 3 stock, so he could literally grab one of the canisters back a bit to add something in his waiting room. But he doesn't really have any waiting at all here.
Yeah, I think one of the issues he's got, obviously, is I think the only card actually in his discard just now might be that the Ricky, so that's not a target for the choice, unfortunately.
No.
But he could use the Shiriko to try and salvage the Ricky to put a target into there. But that would, again, not be ideal for his board state, but he's not got access to those Shizuku's to try and get one of them to even use the reverse effect against that Emma.
Well, at the end, it's like he's now got a blank climax trigger, which is not going to be really benefiting him right now at this point. And even though he does know what the top card, whether or not he can basically swing for 1 or swing for 2 here, if he swings for 1, he can basically make Alan take those 6 cards back into his deck, giving him a much bigger deck count to climax the deck count here.
Yeah, I think one of the issues you've got is it's the 2 cards. As we're thinking, if Alexander's following it the same sort of way we are, he reckons that there should be 1 climax in that deck. So if he swings for that 1 and it's cancelled, that's just putting an extra climax into the deck. Whereas if he swings for 2, it's cancelled. It's the same outcome. Whereas the swinging for 2 would result if it was the bottom card of that climax not going in.
Knowing he just paid out that 2-1 with the Kanata, meaning that his choice trigger now has a target.
Yeah, and that's ideally what he wants. I think the thing will be
he could add it to his hand here rather than his stock.
I think that's a slight issue there. I think personally, I would have added that to stock just to get that extra stock, especially with going into level 3 next turn.
But we don't know if it basically he has the sustainability to go into more than 2 Kanatas here, even if he has 6 stock, because he still doesn't have the hand realistically. Yeah, the bottom card of his deck was the climax, so it was worth the gamble to basically just put the 1 just to basically see that climax being the bottom of his deck. So basically, Alan would have gone 6 back in at this point with 2 other Karens in his deck, and what? Oh, that is not a good sight. It's in another Karen climax doing to his waiting and his clock.
Yeah, generally, if it was an even game, I don't think it would be a good sight. But Alan, I think, is just too far ahead at this point for that to really hurt him too much coming into this turn.
Well, we say this, he doesn't have a climax now to basically play into, so even unless he draws 1 here, which could happen, but knowing that he could essentially get blitzed out with 2 Kanatas pretty easy. So even if it's like 5 climaxes in his deck, it's just like you can never tell what's gonna happen in the follow-up turns here. Because without anything too really high pressure, as I say, Alexander can realistically take this follow-up turn, and just roll with it, really. Even if he doesn't have the Kanata combo, he can just basically do enough to sustain. He can survive a turn.
So Alan brainstorming there to pay out the cannon. Unfortunately, hitting another cannon off of that is not ideal. That means he's now at the 3 out the deck.
Yeah, he did trigger 2 of the Karen 3-2s as well.
Yeah. So he's paid 1 of them out there, and then hit another one on the brainstorm. So he has only got the 1 in deck or in hand accessible to him.
Same with the climax, he's already got 1 in deck for it to be tried to access, unless he basically hits the gate trigger to salvage it back.
He's also got the climax swap, which is available to him as well.
If he doesn't have a climax in hand, the climax swap is not really going to do anything for him. Oh, he drew.
He actually had the 4th copy.
Yeah, he chose to commit it, and now it's basically the case of 4 Emma climaxes are in that deck here. Seeing what he just looked at, it took a moment to figure out whether or not what his trigger count going to be.
It was either a look of, oh, I need to think about what I'm actually triggering here, or a look of, those were the most worst cards I've ever seen on the top of my deck.
There can never be a worse card on top of your deck. It's always going to be at least something. That was the early play healer.
Yep. I think the other way that we've not actually mentioned here about the way that you could get this climax for the following turn.
Is it a cheeky lethal?
It might be. It is. That's for 3.
Ooh.
Okay.
1 in 3/4 is not good when he's in range of the clock kicks.
Yeah. I guess Alan's thankful that he didn't trigger a pants there as well. But the other issue he has is the fact that the support for it can actually grab the other climax out of the clock from.
Which would have been But the thing is, though, even if he did that, that'd basically be 3 climaxes at most in that deck. Realistically, seeing that Karen climax to slam on the board is basically good for Alan. It's basically because he's going to make Alexander double guess how he's going to play the Canada turn, because Alan's deck is not exactly low or sustainable here for the Karen Canada combo. So he could literally just whiff completely, or hit like 1 and then Alan can still cancel it off anyway, so he can't really do too much for it.
Yeah, and while Alex doesn't look like he's got a massive hand there either to try and sustain multiple Canatas here.
He's going to debate whether or not he wants to clock here, because that's going to be putting him very, very risky close to stick out. But I guess even with just 1 Canada combo, he still has access to the 0-0 for the next turn if he was to 1.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things he does have access to is the fact that he can just salvage that Canada, so he doesn't need to search too hard for it. And the Canada playing into a full field is great because it's just that top X, look at the top 5, up to top 5 of his deck. You can then find that climax or another Canada if he's not already got one in hand.
I didn't quite catch what if he actually played that Canada, because the screen just split for a second here.
So he did. He sacrificed off the 2-1.
Oh, he's paying it for it now. He's paying for it now. So he is playing it, and he only stopped at 2.
So to me, that and I'm sure Alan's probably seen the same sort of thing, is stopping that early means that he's either got the second Canada or the climax already in hand for the play. In fact, he's only going for a single Canada by the looks of it here, playing the set 1 Canada.
Yeah.
But at least that will heal him down a wee bit.
The good thing about the 2-1 he had, basically, he just stacks itself off just to basically just salvage the Canadas.
Yeah.
Which is actually quite a nutty skill, in there. Because he just doesn't need to do too much to get the cards back, pieces back that he wants. He just sack it, grab, sure. Especially in a deck like Canada, it's just like you have the board and you've got a hand anyway. It's just like you don't really have to worry about the hand too much. But even then, would you basically be going for the burn 1, burn 3 first before the burn 2? Well, no, because it's on the start of attack phase, right?
Yeah, so the Canada, the set 2 Canada, the one that is the climax combo is on climax place, whereas the set 1 is on
that's kind of
attack
sad,
phase.
to be honest, because you would realistically would have rather the burn 1, burn 3 here before the burn 2s.
Yeah, it's one of those major drawbacks that this deck has, is the fact that the climax and the attack phase 1 just don't work too well together in that sense. And there's so many times where you would much rather do the burn 1, burn 3, or the burn 3, burn 1 before doing Canada's climax combo.
Well, the question is he going to actually play climax here?
I think he has to, and just pray. It's one of the things with Canada, and just it can be the nuts here, to put it simply.
Yeah, because I still remember. Oh, that's a Liam.
Yeah, the fact that
I have no idea what's going on. What are you doing? It's just like it just switches screen constantly. What's going on?
Yeah, the fact that we've got the middle bottom 7 should work. Hopefully in Alexander's favor here. If he hits at least 2 or 3, I think Alan at that point is got a very high chance of just losing right out here.
So for those who aren't aware of the Canada combo, so it's on climax place. It is discarding 2. Then if it's in the front row, you may rest this. Then you mill the top 7 cards of your opponent's deck. And then
Alan might just be dead here. He just hit 3 climaxes off of the Canada. The first 3 sticks. So at least 2 more of these are going to stick.
So the 7 cards from top of your opponent's deck to waiting room, and then you deal 3 damage for every time a climax get put in.
Yep. He had none left. That just killed Alan straight off there.
Holy what? I was just literally reading the card to basically explain it. It's just like he just literally just popped off and killed him.
Yeah, that's the thing with Canada. Yep. he had no climaxes left after those 3 were hit. I think Alan miscounted. I thought he also had one left as well, to be honest there. But yeah, that was it.
He probably clocked and drew too.
Yeah,
which have been very unfortunate.
It's just one of those things. That's
like,
the power of Canada. That's why it was so scary on the release. It's just that sheer finishing
overall,
power.
I do feel bad for Alan because he literally had the game going for him, but until like level 2, it's just like Alexander didn't. Just like the follow up was just like guaranteed burn 3, burn 1, and it just straight up sticks in. It's like you can't really control that.
It's just one of those really unfortunate things that happens. Like you have no control over it generally as a player, and sometimes just the best counterplay is just natural game progression against Canada. I've seen it many times where we've seen it that the player will have next to no climaxes left in their deck or at the bottom of the deck just by sheer chance. And the dice were rolled by Alexander there, and I mean, I think after that he's probably going to the casino and putting the lottery on this evening.
Yeah, just like, well, it's not coming with me and Dario to World Finals. I bet you that.
Well, that was
all the LA casinos.
That was.
It's one of those unfortunate things, and I'm sure Alan is both happy for Alexander playing Niji and managing to get through. Alan's one of the main players that really enjoys seeing Niji doing well at events. So he'll be both happy, but I think a bit sad about the fact that the way he lost that game.
Yeah,
just like Alan really does love playing Love Live Niji. He's just like the infamous Niji sweet man, and just like it's not really great to take a round 1 loss like that. It's just like, especially when it's just like you had everything in your control, and it's just like, well. Actually, technically, I wouldn't 100% say that. It's just like he didn't have everything under his control because of the triggers in his first couple of turns. Because he triggered 1 on his first attack, but he could never pay it out. But then he triggered 2 more on the following turn, so he has to reliably try to pay it out. But then he went like 4 back in, and it's just like he didn't really have the luxury to be able to fix him deck stat well. So even though he could go like 6 back in. It's just like the follow up after follow up was just like it's getting slightly better, but not better enough for him. So it's just like come to the one Canada just to pop and just straight up kill.
Yeah, it's one of the weaknesses of the generally of the 8 pants builds is the fact that they don't have much control over their stock. If your early triggers, you're basically just giving up. And it's one of the reasons that there's many players that play things like the 1-0i or even the standby builds where you have that twin drive to manipulate the stock a bit more, get that stock a bit lower, so that you can actually get those climaxes back out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
what a game that was. Sitting there watching that, like Alan clearly in the better position, but Niji.
He wasn't always in the better position.
Yeah,
he was in a better position. Yeah. Damage count wise, but realistically, that climax to deck wise, it basically Alexander was getting better in it. It's just like he having the 2-1 board as soon as he dropped them down. I was wondering why he did the Ricky play, but it's just like his hand was just like not happening for him. Yeah. It's like he get himself to level 2 and then just realistically just maintain ball state, which realistically did pay out for him because he was able to salvage the Canada's back through the 2-1, which was a fair play for him.
Yeah, so it all went out Alex today, and that was an interesting game to have for our first stream. we were looking through the games going on and seeing what was going to happening, and we said, we'll roll the dice, see what goes on, and we just happened to pick this table where it was 2 Nijigasagi players, and we're like, okay, this is fine. But it was interesting to see. It's not even a mirror match because it was 2 totally different builds.
It's one of these things we see with Niji all over the places that even, I mean, we're now 7 months after the set's release and it's not really settled down into one straightforward build. There's so much in that set that just allows for variety in deck building.
Even Japan, basically, they were more focused with the door gate build now. Sure. I felt like in UK, the door level 1 combo has been devalued quite a lot. Okay. I've been a huge... I was 100% for that level 1 combo, but everyone else just didn't seem to agree. Unfortunately, but it's like Well, it's not like the other decks are bad. It's just like consistency-wise, the level 1 combo did have its own board manageable state. So it's just like in the same way, it's like basically having the 2-1 Shitakus here today. It's like it has its board management, and it's just like it just stopped the opponent from being able to run over him.
Yeah. As one of the UK players that plays the 1-0 combo, and I also play the standby a bit. It is that just that control over my stock that pushes me more towards that. And we could see that there with Alan, where he just didn't have as much ways to get through that stock or pay out those climaxes, which just hindered him later in the game.
Like, the other thing with the Allen's deck is basically he doesn't really have a lot of ways to pay out stock. He has a lot of ways to gem stock, but in terms of paying out, it's not exactly the same ratio. Because outside of Ricky's and Brainstorms and 1-1s and level 3s, you're not really doing much else outside that. So if you start seeing climaxes constantly being flushed into stock, it's like you're not really in a good sustainable spot. And plus, he saw 2 Karen combos essentially go to his stock. There was 1 Karen climax in the bottom of his stock, 1 was cancelled at the bottom of his deck, and then 1 went into refresh penalty, and then he drew the 4th one. So
yeah, that's Weiss Schwartz.
That's it. Exactly as
JD just happened to put in, I assume with a 5-minute delay, but it happened to be perfect timing. So good job, JD.
Yeah, that's just Weiss Schwartz.
Right, we're going to take a very quick break whilst we get ready for the final games to finish, as well as starting ready for round 2. Please don't go anywhere. Thank you for waiting, and we'll see you in a few. Ciao.